All righty. Good morning, guys. Hope you had a great week. This is Ron. It's a little after 10 a.m. So we'll go ahead and get started. First thing, I probably should have said this before we get started recording. We will not meet Monday. No class Monday afternoon or Monday evening, excuse me. And but we are on for with California to the teachers. We are on Sunday, okay? So you guys remind me, we'll announce that again at the end when we have more people out here. But no class Monday, and California meeting is still scheduled for this Sunday, 3 o'clock. All right. Well, how was your week? How was everybody's week? How did you have a good week? I know it got warm here. It was nice last weekend, and then about midweek, it got extremely hot and humid. So that's where we were yesterday as well. I don't know what to expect today. I guess more of the same. But how was your week? Any questions, anything? Last time I think we were talking about names. We're talking about of course the election the convention, excuse me, and looking at the inside of names and whatnot and I'm sure there's a few other things I'm not remembering right now. But how was any questions or comments, anything anybody have you want to share? What? On a Saturday, no questions? Okay. I had something that I wanted to try to tie together. I am absolutely certain. We talked about the scriptures and the wisdom in the scriptures, and even the stories and the fiction that's in the scripture. For call it what it is, I guess. And I am certain that those stories, those manipulations came from wisdom, came from something, because the wisdom and the principal energies are still there. Although that was an attempt to remove that to manipulate people, I think is still there. Pastor, how you doing today? I was about to go in another direction, but I'm glad you're here. The reason why is you and I had talked during the week about the names, and you had some more insight into names.
Okay.
So, do would you like to go into that first, since that's where we left off last Monday? Would you like to go into that before I take us in another direction?
Give me a moment, Ron.
Okay, okay, no problem at all. Sorry about that, but anyway, that's part of what my search is, and I'm very determined to figure out how they glean what they did and turned it into something else. Like, for example, we talk about the Ten Commandments and the link to the 42 principles of Maya. We see that very clearly, but I want to know how all of that came about and pull some of that together. But let's look at this first, because the pastor has some stuff that I thought was interesting.
I
Ron? Oh,
Yes.
no, go ahead. Go ahead, Bob.
Ron, while Pastor's getting situated, I've just got one response to what you just said. How
Yes, ma'am.
can anything created as divinity be totally absent of divinity,
Yeah.
regardless of of European consciousness or anything else? There have to be threads of the creative DNA, if you will, in everything, regardless of whether I choose to use it appropriately or not. Is what I name. That's all I need to add.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate that. And we get into this, I think that will come in handy. You can remind us of that because it's the thread is there. The energy is still there. So that whole thing is intriguing to me to get to the root of it, to see what happened. But anyway, thank you, Barb. Uh, when we're not just keep talking about this convention. We're not just talking about these names without reason or cause. Yes, we are excited about it. Yes, we are excited about where we are and what we're seeing and what is happening in and to the universe. Uh, but this has a cause. This has this is us also celebrating and putting things in the macro, uncovering the energy of these names and what they mean. Because these to say that someone is a goddess, to uncover that and look at the energy that releases into the earth and into the atmosphere. So as we look at this, not only are we enlightened by it, but it also changes the world to me anyway. Pastor?
Okay. Was someone else speaking? What
Sir?
I what
Oh,
I
okay.
did? Oh,
Uh-huh.
am I?
Yeah.
What I did? I looked up the name for her sister, Maya Lashmi, is also a Hindu goddess, and is the wife of well, Vishnu, and it means um, it speaks to wealth and prosperity, and it's a sign of good luck. And it's connected to Kamala in that both of them are goddess, and Lakshmi is depicted with four hands, with a lotus in each one of her hands. And she's also presented as one with being showered with gold coins. Um, she she's either in some poses she's either um sitting on a flower, a lotus flower, or she's standing. But she's related. I mean, the goddess is depicted as having lotus flowers in her hands, just as Kamala is. So what I'm saying in essence is that both of them were named for goddess in India. And those who believe in this goddess, they believe that she was unborn, meaning she was brought into existence without being born from the womb. And when I read that portion of it, something clicked. And what clicked in me is that if you read Kemetic spirituality, which are actually are Kushites, you have the same depiction of the female who brought everything into this earth from her womb not being born, but being brought into existence by the Creator. So it caught my attention, but I guess it shouldn't have surprised me because spirituality was carried to India by the Kushites. And the darker people in India were in more prominent positions until the British got there. And when they came in contact with the British, all of that changed. And everything they were doing in terms of spirituality became a pagan ritual based upon those who brought Christianity to India. And I'm sure it's more out there on her name, but that's the portion that I was able to find.
Question. I don't know if there's any relevance to this, but what was she was married to say Bessie? That's she's what does she bring balance to is what I'm asking. Does that
She's married
uh
to Vishnu.
did you look that name up?
I did not.
Okay, I was just curious.
I know I should have, but I didn't.
Yeah, I was just curious because it speaks of balance to me, and I just wonder if that offered any more insight into what we're looking at here.
I'm
How,
sure Nick is looking it up now.
Yeah, those are so Lakshmi is the wife of Vishnu. And they are some primary Hindu deities associated with fundamental, let's say, emanations of the being of the creator, which are all deities are representative of that, even though at later times they became sort of religious idols. But let me, who is Vishnu? Let's see. So there's three sort of main ones, the male counterpart to the female counterparts. There's three main ones anyway. Vishnu is one of them, but it's is it Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu are the sort of three that are the main male ones, and each one of them has their female counterpart, and Lakshmi is one of them. But without going too deep into that, it is, or Lakshmi is one of the most popular because she's associated with sort of wealth and abundance and good luck. And it's probably obvious to see why that is very popular, but spiritually speaking, that is the source of abundance, the source of everything being provided that you need to accomplish whatever it is you need to accomplish. And so Kamala and her sister being connected to these names and these energy signatures at all is sort of very similar to how Obama was connected to the meaning of his name. So he was the male, and Kamala and her sister represent the female. The two sides of the energy that has to be balanced in the earth before we can have harmony. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a mouthful. I want to see what we can do with this. Something Nick said. Nick said two things that really caught my attention. He talked about the name representing prosperity and wealth and all that stuff, and then he said symbolic of us having everything that we need, everything to get this. So this group, what we're doing here, can we change the meaning of what we're doing? I mean, change the meaning of prosperity that when you're looking at this from a spiritual perspective, that people may think like a lot of people that perceive a need think they need a lot of money. They think they need a lot of stuff. And this conversation, I guess, putting it out there in the macro is that prosperity. The reason why it's popular is because it is thought to represent materialism, but does it really? Looking at it from a spiritual perspective, this is not materialism that we're looking at, is guess what I'm saying? And do we have influence on that going forward? I know that sounds a little confusing.
Ron,
I hope somebody got that. Yes.
Ron, a resounding yes. It can be the consciousness of what that actually means can be changed, much like freedom and democracy has been a disdain in a sense. If you weren't MAGA, you were disdained, and MAGA seemed to have the control of those two words, but now it's being ripped back and being aligned with its true meaning, their true meaning of what freedom is, and so yeah, the basic truth, and I guess that's what it's all about. When you ask the first question you asked, the basic truth or energy of something is still its basic energy. And so what we're doing is just ripping the veils of ignorance, the veils that have covered it and defined it as something different. We're ripping that away so that the essence of it can be accepted and embraced again. So yeah, I agree with you.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. That's what we do. That's what we do. And so what Barb is saying is we're what we set out to do. We're revealing truth, ripping the scabs away and revealing truth as things have been changed and manipulated. Thank you.
It's almost like it's being resurrected, like resurrection or recovery of truth. The truth was always there. We just uncovered it in a different way so that it can be seen for what it is.
Thank you. Excellent. Anyone else?
Good morning. This is Audrey.
Hey, Audrey.
The thing that caught my attention is when Nick was talking about the three main manifestations of God in Hinduism. He said that there are female counterparts to those, which kind of speaks to me of balance.
Yes.
And I remember in that movie, The Woman King, where where was it? Anyway, I forget the country in Africa. But you had the king, and he always had a woman king too. But it just speaks to me of balance in a way that Christianity doesn't have, because it's all patriarchally dominated. Anyway, that just caught my attention. The fact that there's a female counterpart to the male, which speaks of balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff, y'all. I was I bought this book. Shoot. Can't remember the name of it now. Sisters in something. I'll have to. That's bad. I shouldn't even brought it up. I can't remember the name. It escapes me now. But and that's what it really defines to me, is looking at the mesh, the oneness of femininity and masculinity together. And one bringing balance and the other one bringing strength. And they become that for each other. There's nothing that can break that. That's a bond that nothing can break. So that's what we're uncovering. That's the truth that we're uncovering. All righty. Anyone else? Questions or comments on this?
Yeah. Just generally speaking, coming out of the Hindu tradition, it is as Pastor Richard said, very much connected to the Kushite expansion, which is the African expansion. It's while I think the British used to refer to India as the Hindu Kush, like that word Kush is very much connected to Africa, of course. And there is much in the Hindu mystical tradition that is sort of very directly related to spiritual reality. And as I said, all these things sort of over time eventually fall into religiousness or religion as we generally think about it. But when you trace the roots back to the source and begin to deal with the more esoteric or deeper concepts and origins of the Hinduism or any religion really, but in Hinduism in particular, it is much more directly related and sort of less obscured in a way to spiritual reality. And it is coming out of the sort of Hindu and Indian spirituality tradition where we get concepts like reincarnation, where we get concepts like karma. And those are sort of fundamental metaphysical and spiritual realities. And they are spoken about more plainly in the Hindu mystical and spiritual tradition. And you can find them, as we've spoken about before, in various sort of hinted at ways in sort of Middle Eastern spirituality and what the sort of European and Western, quote unquote, mind did to interpret or obscure what was present in Middle Eastern spirituality or Egyptian spirituality as well. But those same fundamental concepts are there.
Yeah.
It's just that they are more obscured. So you can look throughout all the different spiritual traditions and see the threads that all connect back to the source of the original, more ancient understanding of the true nature of spirit, the true nature of consciousness, and the nature of the self, and how we have the ability to explore all of those things and what they connect us to in terms of the nature of the reality that we are within and experiencing. It's just a matter of, in all cases, not falling sort of for the religious interpretation or the sort of trappings of what religion is in terms of ritual and surface level understanding, etc., and seeking the deeper meaning of the tradition, which is really actually found in the exploration of your own self. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Good discussion. Anyone else? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anybody have anything? Some more people have gotten on now. Any questions? Okay. As I was saying earlier, my quest is especially now because I think this is something we need, and I mentioned something. I want to read something to you, and then I'm gonna try to if you would please look at Exodus 34. Exodus 34. And I'm going to start at verse 10. It says, Then God said, Behold, I am going to make a covenant before all your people, and I will perform miracles which have not been produced in all the earth, nor among any nations, or all the people you, among whom you live will see. And the working of the Lord, for it is a fearful thing that I'm going to perform with you. Two verses in here I want to point out that stick out to me. One is this one, verse 10, and I'll show you when I get to it. I'm gonna read this one again. Then God said, Behold, I am going to make a covenant before you, all your people. I will perform miracles which have not been produced in all the earth, nor among any of the nations, and all the people among whom you live will see, and the workings of the Lord, for it is a fearful thing that I am going to perform with you. Be sure to observe what I am commanding you this day. Behold, I am going to drive out the Amorites before you, and the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and Perizzites, and the Hivites, and Jebusites. Watch for yourself and make, here's the other verse, watch for yourself and make no covenant with inhabitants of the land into which you are going, lest it become a snare in your midst. Okay. I think everything in the scripture is tied to the 42 principles of Mayat. I think the whole thing is, and I think they use that as a base to read this, make the scriptures, or manipulate the scriptures. Excuse me. If you were to think, the scripture in Matthew says, "Least you come to me as little children, you will not inherit the kingdom." What does that mean? We talked about that before. Looking at that a little closer, if you take on anything that you look at intuitively becomes yours, you take ownership of it. Example, there is not anybody in here could not think of somebody you love that is not an intuitive thought. Why? Because that person is you and you are them. You take on a part of them and they are you. It is one in the same. So how do we see this and make this a part of see where we are today, all these things that are going on, this election, this convention, all the other stuff that goes on in the world that we know about. How do we make that intuitive and not just see it in the news and be shocked by it, but already have the energy working in that direction? Already has the energy working in that direction. My mother told me something years and years ago. We were talking with my grandmother, and this was in my wild days, right? I was just a kid. And she says, she was sitting down with my grandfather, and she said, nothing can happen to you. Nothing's going to happen to you. As crazy as you are, nothing's going to happen. You've been prayed over in her own way. And I bought into that. Although I did not continue doing wild and crazy things because I knew, you don't tempt things, but I bought that. That made sense to me because I knew somebody was protecting me. So I look at these verses and I say, how is this tied to Mayat? Mayat talks about putting this in children. This goes into children. This isn't something that happens at any age, but if you have the ability to turn spiritual, to see things intuitively, to be spiritual, that is becoming a little child. So when he says in verse 10, listen at this. He says, I'm going to make a covenant before you, before all the people, and I'll perform miracles which have not been produced in all the earth. I'm going to tell you what that means to me. And I want you to think of this. I do not believe we're on the same dimension that we started off on. I don't believe that we're in the same place that we started off on. I think that is what has happened to time. I think that is has moved us to a different mindset, and I think that it's also having a direct effect on the earth and the atmosphere. You hear everybody now talking about how time is sped up. You hear churches now talking about people transitioning and saying other things other than what they used to. I do not see that we're in the same place. And you say, well, that's not the miracles he's talking about. What is that? Is that's not a miracle?
Hey, Ron,
Yes, sir.
go ahead. Go ahead. I thought you stopped.
Go ahead. If you can
No,
help with this.
I was talking last week with someone about that. I believe it was Kathy that's who I was talking to. And I said that there's no way for us to be in the same dimension. And the reason is because there is no way for us to be in the world that in the space rather, that we were in and have Kamala Harris being in the position she is as the leading candidate for president of this nation. But then I read something else yesterday that even made my belief in that much stronger. Governor McMaster signed a bill authorizing the production of a statue of Robert Smalls to be placed on state property.
Wow. Okay.
There is no way that we could be in the same dimension that we were in. No differently than we can't find in the Bible the scripture, that verse we were talking about, bringing Cush over the great ocean, waters, in chains if he has to. When we acknowledged that as ruthless as slavery was and is, it had a divine purpose. When we acknowledged that verse was no longer available. So what I'm saying in essence is that our journey has gone from dimension to dimension, and right now, having been in the space that we're in, I do believe that one day we're going to look retrospectively and see that the dimension that we will currently be in is one of peace and harmony. And I do not believe we will recognize it immediately, but I do believe it would be a retrospective recognition. I'm done.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you. That ties in beautifully. Anyone else? I will perform miracles which have not been produced in all the earth, nor among any of the nations, and all the people among you whom you live will see the workings of the Lord. That's where we are. And when it talks about the Camarites and the Hittites and the Perizzites, what have we just got finished saying? A lot of what we've learned through religion and even our lives, as we talked about, we just talked about prosperity, uncovering the truth of what true prosperity means. That's what these are. All this stuff that looks right to you, all this stuff that looks like it's related to you, all this stuff that may resemble what this false uniform that we put over our faces, that's been forced over us, that's not you. It goes in to what we're talking about here. All this religious stuff looks right, and it has the world confused. All these Pezerites and all this stuff were people that were related to truth. So you take a truth and you manipulate it. You make it look like something that it is totally not. But here's the thing. It never resonated with you. What resonated with you was this is hard now. What resonated with you is the violence. The violence kept us pulling inside. The violence is what kept us being intuitive. The violence is what kept us seeing God. And although we didn't have a pure vision because we never had an opportunity to study this or study ourselves or know what meditation was, and we were told to pray outwardly, and we could not evolve who we were. We kept the flame burning because of the things that happened to us. So when you grasp onto or whether or not it be Christianity or any other type of religion, we were grasping onto something. We were grasping onto the Pezerites and the Canaanites because it looked right, but that's not what resonated with us. And we confused that because we weren't offered anything else. And we confused that flame that was inside of us that was coming from Christianity, and it never was. And as we finding out now that flame is being united when we uncover this truth. So he's saying, watch for yourself and make no covenant with the inhabitants of the land. Again, land speaking of consciousness, and I'm tying this into what Nick said, the true nature of spirit, consciousness, and self is where we're going. So all of this is intuitive. Where we are is intuitive. It is not so much that we're grasping onto this election. We're grasping onto us. This is the tool. The election is the tool that the universe has chosen to bring about these changes. But you are the catalyst. We are the catalyst. And part of these Pezerites and Jezebites, part of it is fear. We are taught to be fearful. We are taught that we are not worthy. We're taught that we are less than. And again, that was forced on us, but it never resonated with us. And now that we see true self, now that we're pushing through, the going back as little children is every time we become intuitive and we look back at who we truly are. We look back at who we truly are. We see the true nature of consciousness. We see the true nature of self. That is becoming little children. It invites us. All the violence over the years has invited us to become little children because it takes us back to beginning. And now that we put all that in perspective and we can see it, to me, I can't wait because this is a personal view that I think. I think we're going to see that all the violence and all the deaths and all the things that we saw was in a totally different dimension. And one day it won't even look the same, because this thing that we've been, the bloodshed and everything that we're calling death, I don't think really exists. Yes, Audrey.
Question. So you're saying then that, well, these are my words, but anyway, my question is, you're saying that we're taking on of a European mindset. It's kind of a covenant that we made.
Yes.
And that became kind of a snare for us, or
yes,
or an entrapment.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes, ma'am. And no fault of our own.
Right.
It was forced upon us.
Right.
But this little few people is enough to pull back the carpet, pull back the ugliness that is out there. And the Creator is allowing us to do this. And why? Because we understand and we know now what it means to be intuitive, to become as little children. We are not defined by controlled by time any longer.
So even
Chris-
so even Christianity became a snare.
Yes, a,
Uh,
a huge snap.
I
I'm
see.
sorry. Go ahead, Pastor.
I see Christianity, Audrey, as being the covenant. You remember when Abraham entered a covenant with the Creator in the scriptures? That was based on a connection with the Creator. So we were given a false God, a God, non-existent God through Christianity. And I think Christianity is the covenant. And once you break with that covenant that you have with Europeans through Christianity, that's when you begin to see enlightenment. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me. And
Mhm.
I feel that kind of like in terms of Ron saying we've become little children again. I really feel that because I'm sort of making my way and not quite sure where I'm headed. I know where I'm headed, but I'm not sure how to get there.
And yeah, I can see that very clearly. And that sense of becoming little children is simply the idea of being humble enough to hear, to hear what, to hear what is being said from a spiritual perspective that is totally foreign to what we are accustomed to. And not only hearing it, but being able to correct when we mention some of the concepts, having the humility to be corrected or to be strengthened, and yet at the same time traveling this journey for the express purpose of humanity and not for ourselves. I'm done.
Yeah, good morning, Ron. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Just speaking in terms of seeing it as children, when we talk about the spirit, there's, the teachings that refer to the 7 characteristics of the soul. And I believe that we have the opportunity to look at that in terms of being able to see it from that spiritual dimension. Now, the word ka, K-A, you know what I mean, in terms of the Kemetic teaching, talks about the importance of the spirit.
Yes.
And Ba, B-A, talks about the soul. So when we say Kaaba, we're talking about the spirit soul, but basically it takes you through the 7 characteristics from infancy in terms of conception all the way through the adult stage in terms of ages. And I think that if we are able to, begin to look at what the significance of that journey, I think it will help us more to see it from the spiritual wealth and not so much in terms of the physical wealth, but coming into that knowledge in terms of who we are. So again, those characteristics of who we are important, and to have maybe some understanding of what it means to travel through that journey of life is something that maybe we can look at in time. And I just wanted to share that in terms of just the heart soul of being a child and going through that transformation to adulthood, or through, becoming that elder, if that resonates a little bit. I think that's something we can look into. I'm done. Unless there's any questions.
George, if you don't mind, and it does not have to be today, but I like to know more about the spirit soul, the distinction of the difference between the two and what they are together. And like I said, it doesn't have to be today, but I like that term, and hopefully we can look at that and tie that into everything else we've talked about.
Yeah, that's a definite, Ron. I'd be more than happy to share
Okay.
on that. Okay.
Okay. Um, any questions, y'all? Any questions or
Ron,
comments? Yes, ma'am.
just a couple comments. As you talked about all these sites and ites and kites, I started looking some of them up,
Uh-huh.
and it's kind of interesting what Exodus is saying from the spiritual perspective. In addition to what you all have pointed out, if you look at the Amorites, they are vocal and dominating type spirits that speak with false voices. They are fame seekers, seekers of human glory and greatness. Sound familiar?
Yeah. Wow.
Canaanites. The meaning comes from the word peddler, lowland people, low in the way of thinking, exists for in and for material things, trafficker in materiality. Sound familiar? Hittite, preys on people's emotions, comes from the word meaning terror, dread, fearfulness.
Wow.
In other words, it's like a stealth operator putting stuff out there to attack the emotions. And that's exactly what white supremacy is. It attacks people's emotions at a sense where they begin to develop non-rational. Hello?
My nail is broken off. Yeah. I don't know what
Hello?
to do about that.
Guys, will you please mute your phones, please?
Am I still
Please
on?
check. Thank you.
Develop these phobias, like fears. Hittite means broken in pieces, terror, dread. So,
Wow.
and I haven't had a chance to look them all up, but that's what he says. That's what it's saying that will be cast away. And
Yes.
and what is all of that? All of
Did we lose you? Is it just me?
No,
hello?
Oh,
You-
we
No,
lost you. You said
you
what?
lost me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think the last thing you said. You when you named all, you said, what is all of that? And that's when we lost you.
Oh my gosh! And I'm just talking.
Sorry.
Okay. What I was saying though is that these are the things that Exodus is talking about being cast away, and these are things that are part of us that we take on as the baggage. We take on the terror that others put on us. We take on this materiality consciousness, this European consciousness, et cetera, et cetera. But that's what being a child is. A child is not, doesn't have all of this baggage. Is just open to new things, open
Yes.
to exploration, open to understanding and just being. And so all of this other stuff is what Exodus is talking about, that all of this gets cast away on our behalf. So when you look at it in a different way as to what the meanings of these things is, it opens up a whole different kind of world. And it lets you literally see that, yeah, I've seen the stuff in others and sometimes in me. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful addition. Thank you. You and George. Thank you very much. Have you ever noticed, perhaps even in your own children, you ever notice when a little child learns to walk and that child feels independence for the very first time and he wants to be like the older children? So he or she kind of wanders off a little bit, and you will call her and say, Sarah or Michael, come back over here. And the child will look at you, but it's like, okay, I can walk now. I got this. Don't worry about it. I got this. But as soon as something happens, she comes back. She comes running back to that place that I know there is safety, where I know there is love, where I know there is comfort. That's where we are. As we shed all this stuff off and we look as though we're naked, we look as though like, oh my God, this is all this stuff was on me. Where am I now? What am I to do now? But being intuitive invites us to run back to our love, to run back to that safety net, to run back to the heart that loves us, that cares, that compassion. And it is our strength. So, and when we do that, it says, this next verse says, but rather you will tear down their altars and smash their sacred pillars and cut down their asherahs. And I did not look asherams, and I did not look that word up. I'm sure it's some kind of God or some kind of sacred God or something to look up to, but I did not look that up. But all these things, all these pillars that even the people, the presidency of Trump, that people look up to, there are some that look at him as dread and fear. But that's not who we are. That's not who we are. So as we uncover these things, as we grow, as we move from, as Pastor said, dimension to dimension, we see this clearer now. The vision becomes much more clear as our consciousness grows, and we value the things that we see and uncover rather than the things that we're trying to discard. That's kind of all I got, if there are no questions.
It says ashram.
Yes, sir.
Ashram is from the Hindu religion. It is it's like a school where you learn about Hindu religion.
Huh. But I don't know what to do with that. Somebody tie that into where we are. That's it is a religion, another false religion, but
Yeah, it's probably at the point of interface between the Middle Eastern religion and the Eastern religion, and the beginning of sort of religious, or the example of conflict between those two things in the religious sense. And within their understanding, it would be, yeah, just to tear down falsity, or whatever they would conceive of as being untrue.
hey, Nick, based on what we've just talked about here in Exodus, if you can, if you want to, go back to your true nature of spirit, consciousness, and self, and tie this in for us, please. If you see it.
Sure. Let me look up Exodus 34 again.
Starting in verse 10, I think what we do, 3 verses, 4 verses. I don't know. 4 verses, 10 through 13. What we just talked about. Because when you said that, I'm like, that's exactly what we're had planned to go today. When you were talking about that at the end of your last comment that you made.
So we've spoken about before how so the 12 tribes of Israel, and everyone mentioned in the Old Testament, is like a mindset or a consciousness that you encounter within yourself, especially the 12 tribes of Israel, because it has to do with the number 12, 12 constellations of the zodiac, etc. But it's the underlying spiritual reality is that the nature of the consciousness that you encounter during your investigation into the nature of your own self, you must judge relative to spiritual and metaphysical reality. And whenever we come across that religious mindset in particular, we have to immediately recognize it for what it is, or first correctly identify it, and then sort of know what to do with it, which is to leave it alone or walk away from it, and to not recreate it within ourselves, and not to project it onto reality. And we take that same sort of ability to discern the nature of the mindset or consciousness to every aspect of self that we encounter. We take that discernment to every sort of other school of thought that we encounter. And that could be religious or whatever. And we learn how to weigh it in terms of the scale of ma'at. You learn how to weigh that thing against the nature of spirit or reality, as we are able to perceive or experience that based on our own development. And that is how we know whether a particular mindset should be left alone, or whatever other way we want to describe the process of walking away from it. To not feed energy into it so that it does not take hold and cause confusion, essentially. So the ultimate judge of the nature of the mindset is always the still small voice that we learn to remain open to. I'm hearing something. Sound like a commercial or something. Anyway. So the ultimate nature of the mindset is what we have to learn how to see the underlying nature and source of. And when we talk about Canaanite, Hittite, Jebusite, all of the ites, these are all the possible variations of the consciousness of the mindset that we possess internally, as well as what we encounter in the world as a reflection of the nature of self that is present within all of us.
So what you said, Nick, gives really more specific meaning to the words "try the spirit by the spirit." In other words, Mayat is the balance. I'm sorry, Mayat is used to judge all of those other spirits, in a sense. So it just gives new meaning to that for me.
Guys, I'm hearing something. Is somebody watching TV? Is somebody? Okay, thank you. Barbara?
Yes, I was just simply commenting that what you just said gives additional depth to the words "try the spirit by the spirit." In other words, the consciousness of Mayat is used as the measure, if you will, to judge all of these other heights and kites and types of consciousness. And if they don't come up, if they don't meet the Mayat basic tenements of Mayat, you discount them, discard them.
Right. And also,
What are you doing, Anna? Working on my dating profile. Want to see?
Please mute your phones, guys. Please.
Yeah, if anybody is on a computer and there's other videos going on in any other tab or browser, I can hear commercials. Mattress Firm, anybody hearing Mattress Firm, that's you. Okay, thank you. I was gonna say in leaving those mindsets alone and seeking the true nature of self and the balance within, you actually transform those mindsets and bring them along with you on your essentially journey to understanding the true nature of the consciousness of the spirit that you are. So there is much in terms of the conflict described in the Old Testament between all of these groups. And as I'm sure we've stated here before, that conflict is the internal conflict. And it is the competing mindsets and consciousness says that we learn how to find the correct relationship between so that we can progress spiritually without getting caught up in any of those particular attitudes, mindsets, etc. And when we learn how to make progress, we bring balance to those mindsets, to those consciousnesses that are present within and without in our environment. And that is not only present in the Old Testament as we read it, it is also present, since we've mentioned Hindu tradition, it is also present there. The same idea. There is the idea of the great conflict that must occur. And it is ultimately that spiritual conflict where we learn how to overcome those things that are holding us back internally, to overcome illusion, to overcome sort of fear, anger, etc. At least to the extent those things are out of balance within us, so that we can continue to pursue the ultimate source and core of our spiritual being, which brings all of those things to balance, which is the ultimate, for lack of a better term, judge or ruler of all of those things that are within. Thank you. Oh, are you muted? Ron, you muted if you're speaking.
Okay, now I'm just saying thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Any questions, y'all, or comments about what Nick has said? Anybody?
I'm hearing Mattress Firm again.
Honestly, that sale of the year. Save up to $700 on Tempur-Pedic.
Apparently you can save $700 on a Tempur-Pedic. Anybody seeing that? Kill that browser, please.
Okay. Well, I think that's all we have for today. If there are no questions or comments on anything that we spoke of. But we are in a beautiful place, and that has me excited. That has me excited what's going on here. Yes, there's still chaos and stuff happening, but we're in a beautiful place. And our vision of this chaos is changing, and it's going to eventually change what we see and what others see.
Yep.
So good job, everybody. Appreciate your energy. Appreciate everybody
Ron?
that's Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ron, I'm sorry. You said it's going to it'll eventually change what we see and what other people see. It is already happening.
Yes,
You can
ma'am.
tell by what's
Yeah.
happening around. It is already now.
Yeah.
So people are seeing, not necessarily everybody, but
Yeah.
enough that we understand that this change is now.
Thank you. Thank you for that correction. That's very important. Thank you. Yes. I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much. And anyone else? So let's celebrate, y'all. When our meditations are not only enhancing us, it's enhancing the world. And I celebrate that. Not to let things grab me and control me the way it has in my past. And I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you guys have a great day, and I look forward to tomorrow. Have a good day, y'all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Reminders, Ron?
Right.
I apologize. I'm sorry, y'all. No Monday night class, and to all the teachers, we will be meeting Sunday with California Group. So we'll meet at 3 o'clock as usual, and no class Monday. And if I forget that, someone remind me tomorrow, because usually it's more people on Sunday. Okay. But thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.